Time travel weapon. Boom.
Oh, he's doing genocide?
They've been doing it for 200 years.
200 fucking years.
Back.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Into the Wormhole with Larissa and Lauren. I'm Larissa Maestro, and here with me, as always, is my number one,
Lauren Lowen. Hey.
Hey. So, can you believe it's been a whole fucking year?
No. We did one episode, technically two, but we did one time in the studio, and I
in the same
don't
room.
think we thought we would still be doing this from our respective homes a year later.
No. It's kind of overwhelming, right? But like, happy anniversary, though.
Thanks, I think.
So it's kind of our 1 year anniversary of the start of our podcast, because we released our first episode like a week into quarantine in March of last year when Tennessee shut down. So it's
I thought you were saying happy anniversary to the pandemic, but I realized she means the podcast. Yes,
I
happy
mean
anniversary
to you and me.
Yay!
That's nice, but also to the pandemic.
Man, some might say it's been quite a year, perhaps a year of hell.
Oh my God. It really has. So yeah, in honor of the past year being literally hellish, we're going to talk about the Voyager 2-part episode, Year of Hell.
Bring it.
I mean, it seems so fitting to talk about an episode called Year of Hell, but also there have been a bunch of random posts on like Star Trek Twitter or like Star Trek Facebook groups or whatever, where people are like, describe the past year in an episode title from Star Trek. And it's just like, I'm just like showing up to see how many people are saying Year of Hell.
Yeah, that kind of seems like the obvious choice.
Yeah, because that's the one. This episode is considered to be one of the best episodes of Voyager.
I know. I was going to ask that, but my memory is that it's consistently on top 10 lists for Voyager.
Yes.
If not one of the top 3 episodes, we'll say.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I will say I agree. This is high up for me as far as Voyager episodes go. I mean, it's just fun.
I have a confession.
What's that?
I totally thought we were going to record this, and I would have to tell you my deep dark secret, which is I don't really care for this episode.
Oh my God.
But after, because I've seen it before, but after I was forced again to watch it and pay attention for the podcast, I realized I was like, yeah, this is pretty fun, especially the first part. There are still issues I have with it, and I think those are the small things that once I walk away and I think about it, I think I don't want to watch it again, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but I understand.
But I will say, like, do you think the first episode is better than the second one of this 2-parter?
I mean,
do you like it because Voyager just gets smashed and everyone's getting injured?
Yes.
I mean,
I love that. I love it. I love that part of it. I love seeing Janeway in charge in battle also. I mean, I think it continues the story pretty nicely. I do think the first half is tighter than the second half.
Okay. Well, maybe we should get into the summary before we get into the specifics.
Also, I totally understand now that I'm thinking about it. You're not really a fan of time travel stuff in Star Trek.
But this isn't really time travel. This is time manipulation. This isn't, we traveled to, I mean, I like the San Francisco one. Don't get me wrong. I like Time Zero. But, what I don't like is that cliche that every time travel story has, that kind of trope where it's like, we have a character thrown back. they have to pretend they're not from the future.
Yeah.
And there's always somebody that's their ally and they just think that person's crazy. And then they're like, whoa, you really are from the future. And I'm just waiting and waiting to get to that point so we can carry on. But this definitely isn't that kind of story.
Like, when is Sarah Silverman going to figure it out? When is Sarah Silverman going to get on board with this?
I have to admit, in Star Trek Whales, I didn't mind it there. That story is kind of that, but they did it really well. It was fun.
Yeah. I'm just gonna call that Star Trek Whales.
Star Trek Whales. Star Trek Whales into darkness.
Star Trek Beyond Whales into darkness.
Just add whales to every single Star Trek title. Year of Whales.
Year of Whales.
Year of Whale Hail.
Whale Hail. So we're gonna attempt a recap for you guys. This is a 2-part episode.
Can I do it?
Yes, please, because
I'm gonna need your help, but this is just gonna be the really quick Lauren summary.
Yeah, I'm here for you. That's what friends are for.
Okay, so Voyager still trying to get home. That's pretty much how every episode opens. Still trying to get home. Wait,
they're still trying to get home?
And basically they come across an area of space where there is a scientist guy who is using a spaceship time manipulation weapon to wipe out species because it will manipulate history in a way that brings back his race to power and also brings back his wife. However, they've been doing this for 200 years, and no matter what he does, he can't get the colony that his wife was on. So every time he manipulates history, he never quite gets it the way he wants to. So this crew has been at it for 200 years. Voyager crosses their path. They get affected by this time travel weapon into what is called the Year of Hell. And they get damaged and destroyed and people get injured and all that sort of fun stuff. They take Chakotay and Paris because eventually Voyager develops shields that give them protection from the weapon.
Temporal shielding.
And they are getting in the way of the plans. They are a factor that the scientists didn't really take into account. So he steals Tom and Chakotay. They're on the ship trying to work out what to do and help Voyager. And they do that. And they do that. They do things that help. I'm really trying to blow through this, if you could tell.
Paris ends up helping to start a mutiny on the Krenim ship. And they're able to get a message to Voyager that they're going to be able to shut down their temporal core so that Voyager can come blow them up.
Yeah, and then their shields go out of the way. So they're able to defeat the ship. They blow it up, which again changes history so that this mad scientist never made this time travel weapon ship to begin with. And then it ends with him being back on his planet with his wife. And then Voyager goes back to Hunky Dory a year ago and they continue on their way.
Yeah. There we go.
Now we can get all the little details, but that's it.
Oh, yeah.
Time travel weapon. Boom.
Or I just wanted to mention really quick a little bit of the history about this episode. So this episode is foreshadowed in a season 3 episode of Voyager. So this Year of Hell is season 4 episodes 8 and 9. And it is mentioned in the season 3 episode Before and After, the one where Kes is moving through time in her own life. And she hears about the Year of Hell and tells them don't go to Krenim space or don't do this or whatever. It's mentioned. So it's cute that it's foreshadowed already. And the other cool thing is that Brandon Braga, I guess, who co-wrote the episode, was playing with the idea of having this be an entire season of Voyager.
Yeah, that I kind of love.
I know. I kind of am super into an entire season of Voyager just being completely destroyed.
I mean, it kind of reminds me of Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
Which Ronald D. Moore did TNG.
Yeah.
A big part of Deep Space Nine. And then I think he worked barely in Voyager before he left. But a lot of people, and he also cited one of the frustrating things about Voyager was that everything was so perfect. It was just, everyone's having their champagne like Janeway's talking about. And, whereas things with Battlestar Galactica when Ronald D. Moore headed that was that everything got dirty and, the ship started falling apart and shit got serious. And
yes,
so
exactly.
I feel like this is the one time at Voyager it actually kind of gets real like that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, Voyager, more than any of the other shows in the franchise, I think, really does that hard reset every episode. And it's almost like now everything's clean. Like literally like everything's been vacuumed and scrubbed.
Yes.
before the beginning of the next episode, and you don't really, and this is the show, I think, where the exploration of something like PTSD, which we get in this episode, like the place that Voyager is in is like the perfect place to explore what happens to people who are experiencing PTSD. I feel like it would have just given, if they'd spent more time in this sort of world, it would have given Janeway so much more to like, more like grit, more shit to do, more shit to chew on. I mean, this episode, like, she's like, Kate Mulgrew is like killing it in this episode, basically. Like, she is so tough. She is just trying to get things. I mean, obviously, of course, like, she is neglecting her own health and all of that stuff. I literally wrote in my notes, Catherine, self-care. It's important. Dude, like, seriously, like, take a nap.
I mean, I thought one of the more interesting moments of that is when she's ignoring the doctor. And not only does he give the command, like, I now, order you to basically stop being the captain. Forget what the formal command is, but
relieve her of duty.
Thank you. Stop working. But, she's kind of like, what are you going to do? We don't have force fields. Like, there's no way you can contain me. There's no security to reinforce this. And she almost, she obviously has to do what she has to do because there's only, 8 people running the ship?
Yeah.
But
and also Tuvok's blind.
That too. But it's kind of scary in a way because you realize like Janeway's just doing what she has to do, but you wonder if she's also going to get to a breaking point where she's just as obsessed and maybe almost like dead. Like, I couldn't remember all this episode, but part of me wondered like, oh, is there a scene where the crew does talk about their own form of mutiny?
Yeah.
Mutiny?
Yeah. Mutiny. Yeah, you're totally right. That's one of the, I think, strengths of this episode is seeing Janeway and Anorax like sort of like foil each other, but also parallel each other in their like increasing obsession and how sort of the difference in availability of resources affects the way that they tackle their respective situations. Like he's got everything he needs and he's protected and she's not. Like they're fucked. Like Voyager is so fucked. I love how fucked up Voyager is in this episode.
I do. I enjoy all of that, which is probably most of episode 1. Episode 1 is seeing the ship, I mean, literally fall apart, but also just their situation getting worse and worse. And
just
then
evolve,
the second episode focuses more on Tom and Chakotay on the alien ship, kind of plotting and getting to know Annex. What's his name again? Anthrax? Anorex? What is his name?
Anorex.
What is it?
Sorry that I'm just laughing. I'm just going to let her try.
I hear something. It's the dad from that 70s show. Hey, everybody.
It's Brett Foreman.
It's Kurtwood Smith.
Yeah. Oh, let's just talk. Can we just talk about that real quick?
Yes.
Because Kurtwood Smith, I think, belongs in the Star Trek guest star Hall of Fame. And he only has had 4 guest starring roles on Star Trek, but he's such a memorable actor that it's just like, oh yeah, that's Kurtwood Smith. That's the guy from that 70s show. His voice is so recognizable.
Oh, yes.
His face is so recognizable. And he's a very good actor. His other in-franchise appearances, aside from Anorex on this episode, Year of Hell, are Star Trek VI. He was the Federation president. DS9 episode Things Past. He was the security chief of Terok Nor before Odo. So he was a Cardassian. He's a very convincing Cardassian also. And then he was a voice on Lower Decks this first season.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was. He was. It was like when they're. It's an episode we haven't talked about.
Okay, I'll have to look out for it.
Yeah, that species that's putting the crew of the Cerritos on trial, and they're basically calling the 4 Lower Decks main characters as witnesses, and they're like, how do you not know what's going on your own ship? And they're like, because we're not important.
Yeah, we're just little minions.
Yeah, okay. I remember being like, hey, it's Red Foreman. He's back. So yes, Kurtwood Smith, I feel like he belongs in the Hall of Fame with like James Cromwell. You know, I feel like that's a good place for him.
Okay.
Anyway, moving on.
Can we talk a little bit about his character and the alien ship?
Yeah.
Okay, because here's the thing. Like I said in the beginning of this episode, my memory is that this is not one I go to watch and be like, oh yeah, this episode, I like this episode. And I've been thinking about this because I don't think necessarily his character was miscast. Like you said, he's a good actor. And I think he plays the character well. I can't think of anything I would want different. But I feel like I have more fun when they're just looking at the ship versus what's actually happening on the alien ship. And I don't know if it's just the fact that he gets to deal with Tom and Chakotay. Like maybe I would have preferred if somebody else was over there. It just seems like they...
You mean like B'Elanna, who has almost nothing to do in this episode? Like, let it be B'Elanna. Like, she would have beat the shit out of him. That would have been interesting.
Yeah. I just feel like... And maybe that's what it is. Like, maybe for me, a good chunk of this storyline just is... And it's all just personal taste, by the way. This has nothing to do with a fault of the episodes. But for me, it's just like, oh, we have Tom and Chakotay. And my memory, too, was that Tom and Chakotay were playing like kind of a good cop, bad cop thing. Like when they're in the dining room and, you know, he's like, hold on a minute, Tom, like hear him out. I thought there was a scene where they went back to the prison and they were kind of talking about their plan, even though they somewhat have a plan later on. But I didn't remember Chakotay actually sort of drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
And to me, it seems a little weird. Like I think they could have, if they had time, no pun intended. I would have loved if they somehow more effectively. I don't know. It's just, I guess Kirkwood's. It's almost like he's a character MacGuffin. Like he's just like there for plot, but I didn't feel like his character. Like yes, he has motivation, but he's not like one of those characters I think about when I think of like great villains in Star Trek history. Or just interesting characters. Like I wish he came off to me a little bit more gray, but the whole time it's always okay. He's obviously the bad guy, and he's obsessed. And Chakotay is sympathetic for him, but I never get there with Chakotay.
Okay, so now that I'm thinking about who else they could have kidnapped and what that would have done for the plot.
Okay.
And what that would have done for character development. No. Harry.
I was even wondering, like, should they just at least taken Harry? Because even Harry and Tom is like a dynamic duo.
No, but if it had been Harry and B'Elanna.
Okay. I'm listening.
They are so different. Like, as far as their characters go, the way that they handle stress is completely opposite.
True.
Harry's always like, everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be okay. I'm just going to try to be empathetic and try to be nice to everyone and everything's going to be okay. And B'Elanna's like, I'm going to find some weapons and I'm going to shoot some people and I'm going to get the fuck out of here. I'm going to science my way out of this situation because I am very smart. And Harry, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing, Harry? And Harry's like, but he gave us food and he seems nice and he lost his whole family and, you know, and she's like, Harry, oh my God.
Yeah.
No. You know, that makes sense Chakotay drinking the Kool-Aid, you're right, does not make any sense. Like I kept thinking like he's playing him, right?
That's
he's
what I
playing
thought.
him, but he wasn't. And I was like, why is he not playing him though? This until he finally is playing him, but he has to like watch him destroy an entire civilization in order to like get to that place.
Yeah.
I was like, Chakotay, he's doing genocide. Like, you and your character should understand
Yeah.
what genocide looks like.
And your point about Harry, like, first of all, if you took him off the ship, he doesn't really do that much on Voyager. So I think, like, you're right. If you moved him, it's not like you're missing anything.
Oh, poor Harry.
But the fact that out of all of them, I think family's the most important to Harry. I mean, that's like something they touch upon the whole show about how Harry is so attached to his parents and just wants like a goddamn letter from his parents. That he might be like, let me talk to him. Like, I understand. I miss my family so much, but I wouldn't do this to see them. Or, you know, like that could have been an interesting dynamic where he just wanted more time to try to reason with Kurtwood Smith.
Anthrax.
70s dad.
Yes, totally. Now that I'm thinking about it, I do think that Chakotay and Paris were the wrong people for that.
I just am not that interested in Chakotay when he has to when he's out of the ensemble thing, you know? And so for them, this is like his little drum solo. And I'm just kind of like...
Yeah. I mean, no. Like, honestly, I feel like if they'd let them kidnap Harry and B'Elanna and kill off Chakotay, because I feel like one of you're
right. No, they're going back in time. Why not?
Because they're gonna fix it anyway. Because I think what what they were trying to do was they were trying to take Chakotay out of the situation on Voyager so that Janeway was more isolated and alone.
Yeah, that's true.
Which makes complete sense to me as far as that whole plot line goes. So if you need to get Chakotay out of the picture, we're resetting everything anyway at the end. Just kill him.
Yeah, you're right.
That's fine. It's fucking fine. Like, nobody in the senior staff dies. We only have Tuvok is injured.
Yeah, it is kind of amazing that nobody... I mean, I guess like technically Janeway dies because she flies into the alien ship at the end, but still, like, there should have been like, something.
That's the end, though.
I wonder if that's just because all the actors were like, no, I want to be in the episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, someone should have died. You might as well have it feel like a real threat.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that would have made it if someone on the senior staff had actually bit the dust.
Oh God, if I would have loved it if the doctor had to close the hat. That I should explain to the listener. There's one point early on where some of the decks are gonna, I think, blow up, and so the doctor has to evacuate sickbay, and he has, he's moving people into the Jeffrey tubes to get them safe, and has the door open for as long as he can, and then there's two crewmen running towards it, but they run out of time, so he has to shut the door. And that means those two crewmen are lost. I would have loved it if somebody from our main cast was one of those two.
Yes. That would have just raised all of the stakes for the whole thing. I mean, the stakes are really high in this episode. Like, we're seeing a lot of stuff that we've never seen before on this show. Like, we're seeing the ship completely destroyed, which is a big deal. Like, there's a lot of really fun action stuff in this episode that we haven't seen before on this show, which is really fun. But if we had lost someone, because here we are, like, it's Star Trek, like, again, we know that main cast members don't get killed off on Star Trek. Like, it just doesn't really happen.
Right.
You know? Like, it happens
seldomly.
One time.
I mean, we have obviously Terry Farrell, but that was more for
Terry
like
Farrell,
back behind the scene reasons.
That was Rick Berman's fault. That was Rick Berman, everybody.
And then
Tasha Yar.
I mean, Cass, she didn't die, but she left the show. But we're talking about deaths,
left the show.
Right?
Yeah, we're talking about
leaving the show.
Deaths. Yeah. Like main characters just dying. Like,
and Tasha Yar, that was because. But you're right. I mean, out of like all these full casts, we're talking about a handful of characters.
Yeah, like that doesn't really happen. So like if we do that here in this episode, it just elevates it, man. Oh, if it had been Chakotay running for that door.
Yeah, I mean, really, like 'cause the whole point, like you said, is get rid of Chakotay.
And then imagine her finding the watch. Imagine her finding the watch, and Chakotay's dead instead of kidnapped.
There, dun dun dun.
So Chakotay like tries to give her a birthday present. He replicated this fancy watch for her, this like ancient timepiece, and tries to give it to her. And Janeway's like, "No, recycle it. We need all the energy and matter we can get to like save the ship." Blah, blah, blah. Then Chakotay doesn't recycle it. Then he's kidnapped. And then she goes to his quarters and she finds the watch and has an emotional moment and then wears it on her hip for the rest of the episode. If he had been dead.
Yeah.
Instead of just kidnapped. If he had been dead. Oh my God. Like I would have. I mean, I always cry at like everything, but like I would have been like, oh no, Chakotay. Like that would have just we're like this is what our podcast is now. Lauren and Larissa rewrite.
I was gonna say, welcome to another episode of Larissa and Lauren rewrite Star Trek. This is us just, what if they did this? What if they did that? Hey, I do want to bring up something though with the ship.
Okay.
So obviously like Janeway takes off her jacket, and people are a little dirty, and there's a few strands out of Seven's hair, like French twist.
I mean, she still looks great though.
But I think it's funny that the only time we see someone really disheveled is there's a very quick scene of Chakotay after being like in isolation on the alien ship. He has a slight beard, which is not a 2-month beard. It's like he didn't shave for a week. But I was thinking it's like at the end, Harry Kim still has like his perfect hair. It's just been scruffed up a little bit,
Yep.
And part of me is thinking, I haven't had my haircut in a year. This pandemic, like our year of hell, it's like I haven't had time. And I realize they can just, it's space and they probably just walk under something and it cuts their hair for them. But with all this, recycle the watch and energy is precious. Like,
right.
Even me, like, I just don't have the energy sometimes to handle my self-care because there's so many other things that are important. And I feel like it would have been fun if towards the end, if it really was like Harry's hair is like long in a ponytail and, people are just like, fuck it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, why is the deflector dish not working, but we still somehow have a sonic shower? You know what I'm saying? Like, we still have, you can still get your haircut somehow. I don't know how that, like, how are we doing triage in the mess hall? But like, Janeway's hair is she's still got the bob.
Right.
Going.
And again, it's just like, oh, I had my like wind messed up my hair. But I realize why they didn't do it, but I think it would have been fun. It would have been a fun artistic touch, at least for me.
Yeah.
I wish they would have let at least all the men grow beards, kind of like, because here's the thing too, after being in a pandemic and running after 2 kids, I have access to all this self-hygiene stuff. Sometimes I'm just too damn tired, Larissa.
Yeah.
Sometimes it really is like, I could get up and take a shower, but I am too tired. And I feel like with 8 people on the ship, like, you're running around like crazy fixing everything. There's probably times where like the last minute you want to do is take 2 minutes to take a sonic shower. You'd rather just go straight to bed.
Right? Yes, absolutely. Okay, so there's I feel like this is a good time to like get into how it felt to watch this episode a year into a global pandemic.
Okay.
Because they do a thing. If you've seen the episode recently, you'll know they do a thing where they have a day marker. They're like, day 1, day 133, and it's thinking about that in terms of like, at the beginning of the pandemic, I was keeping track of how many days it had been since our first night of quarantine, right? So like our first night here for me and Dan was Friday, March 13th. That was our first night.
Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th.
Oh, man.
And I started like keeping track of how many weeks, how many days, how many weeks it had been. I have since stopped.
Right?
Why? But that felt like sort of eerie. And then also there's a moment at the beginning of the episode after they've been sort of in a fight with the Kremlin. The Kremlin. I did it. I said the Kremlin. They've been in this war with Vladimir Putin. But they've been in battle with the Krenim already. And Janeway sits down in her chair and she says, "This is turning out to be the week from hell."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, girl, I feel you." That's what it felt like at the beginning.
Yeah, we're all like, "Oh, it's
man.
2 weeks. We'll just buy some puzzles and
right,
get
like
through
this is gonna suck." Not knowing how bad it was gonna be.
It's so weird.
That moment for me was like, "Oh shit!" Like here we are. Man, so many like moments where it's like, I even like looked up like the beginning of part 2. They say day 133. I was like, when was that for me?
Right. What were we
looked
doing
it up.
on day 133?
For me, it was July 24th. Yeah, it was. We were still trying to get people to wear masks, man.
Hmm. Do you remember what your last like big event was before kind of the big shutdown, like before you hunkered down? Whether it was like an event or a date or...
It was a benefit show for the Community Foundation of Middle Tennessee for tornado response.
Oh, gosh.
At Marathon. I played with Margot Price. And I hugged a lot of people that day.
It's a good thing because...
Mike Grimes on the face.
You have to stock up on those hugs.
Yeah, but like, of course I kissed Grimey on the head. The basement east had just been destroyed.
Yeah, we were going through our own stuff in Nashville last March.
Right? And it was like a week after the tornado that we had to lock everything down. So, yeah, I mean, thinking about like not knowing how long it was going to be. And then thinking about like having to, and she also, so that's not the only thing that she says that like feels that way. She also says when they're in part 2, when they're hiding in that Class 9 nebula and they're just like isolated in there trying to fix their shit. She says, "I thought this nebula would be a safe haven until we finish repairs, but it's turning into a permanent residence."
Oh, that's true.
And I was like, "Oh no.
Oh my goodness, yes.
We're in the nebula."
My last event, it was actually in February because Keith and I had, we had Andrew, a small child, so we don't really get out that much. But ours was, we don't celebrate Valentine's Day. We actually go out on what we call Valentine's Day Eve. So
smart.
It just became something that we did for practical reasons, and it became like our thing. But I don't want to say it was a joke, but as a more like lighthearted date, we went to Dave & Buster's.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, but it's funny to think that like that was our last big thing is we went to Dave & Buster's and we won like a bouncy ball for our son.
Your last big thing was Dave & Buster's.
Well, what else should we talk about with this episode?
Well, so I have always really enjoyed watching this episode. And that's for a lot of like I acknowledge the problems that you have with it, and I totally agree with those problems. Which,
by the way, is not like me trying to say like you're wrong, or like even my favorite episodes, I can point out things that don't quite work, and I'm not even saying they don't work about this episode. It's just me.
Yeah,
so I don't want you to feel like you have to defend your liking of this episode.
Oh no, I don't have guilty pleasures, you guys.
Pleasures.
I take responsibility for all of my pleasures, and I back them 100%. This episode to me feels like, it feels like a 90s action sci-fi movie. Even the music is like bigger. There's so many moments that are just like, yeah, like the part where that whole deck blows up.
Yeah.
That is so much fun to watch. I love episodes like this where Janeway is just a badass and she's just like go, go, go. And like, no, I'm gonna fucking jump into this literal fire so that I can fix the deflector dish. And that's just because I'm a fucking badass and I am in charge and I know I have to take care of so many people, you know? Her final moment, like I think about that regularly. I'm like, there is Janeway blowing up the patriarchy. Like she literally says, time's up.
Oh God, that was so 90s film. Yeah.
She literally says time's up and then flies Voyager directly into the Krenim weapon ship.
I just want to be like, where's Sylvester Stallone? Where's, Arnold? Time's up.
Yeah. But also like thinking about it now after the whole time's up movement, watching a female captain blow up a guy that's fucking everyone up because he's trying to change everything for his own benefit is like kind of fun.
I will admit though, like her going into the fire, I think was more about how she's getting unstable.
Yeah, I know. It's true.
Like,
but
Picard would never do that. Picard would be like, Riker, sorry, dude, but you're going in the fire.
He would definitely send somebody else. No, because also Picard is a diplomat. He's not.
This is true. But
like, I feel like Kirk would have gone into the fire.
Yeah.
Kirk would have jumped in there. Both Kirks would have jumped in there.
True. Very true.
Maybe Cisco would have jumped in there.
I'd be like, Odo.
He would have said, no, you send Odo in there.
I have no idea if Odo, like fire hurts Odo. I'm going to imagine it does.
Doctor would have sent Data.
I was going to say, we would get Data.
Of course. But like, we don't have Data. Why couldn't you send the Doctor? Right. Oh my God.
Maybe the fire would have disrupted his program. Like he couldn't form.
Yeah, or it would have messed with his
like
mobile
fried
emitter.
That. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. But also he doesn't have skin.
True.
Yeah.
I guess he can. Yeah, he can go around the ship. At this point, can he get off the ship?
Yeah, he's got the mobile.
That's what I thought. Yeah. Okay.
So for me, this is like, there's a lot more action in this episode than there is in most of Star Trek.
Well, that's true. I mean, that's why it's kind of fun. Yeah. It's the same reason why I like Disasters from TNG.
Yeah. Because it's got a lot of like fun, active shit going on. But there's also a lot of moments that I tend to like little emotional moments, like when she sends everyone out in the escape pods, when she makes that speech.
Yeah, especially after Chakotay suggests that. And she's like, oh, no. And she finally has to admit that's the only choice they have. I also really like the couple of moments that Seven and Tuvok have, because
I love all of those moments.
Yeah.
I love all of them, except that I hate watching people shave.
But yeah, once Tuvok goes blind, listener, Seven is sort of his valet, I guess you could say. She helps him across the ship and stuff whenever he's walking. And no, it's just fun because they have conversations, like her being Borg and very logical, and then obviously Vulcan aspect of Tuvok. They have some conversations that are just nice. Yeah.
Yeah, there are, again, nice friendship moments and nice moments where like they really get each other, where they really understand each other.
Yeah, they bond over the like, of humans.
Yes.
Humans. Am I right?
That's the perfect way to say it. Yeah. But then there's that really sweet moment where Janeway says goodbye to Tuvok.
Yes.
And that made me get a little bit choked up. Because I love Janeway and Tuvok's friendship so much. But yeah, there are like nice little moments. Even the part where Harry's trying to keep B'Elanna
just distracted from the pain of her injury.
Yeah, trying to distract B'Elanna by playing that trivia game with her. It's so Harry. What a Harry thing to do.
Yeah.
It's so sweet and Harry and like, wholesome. Harry's so fucking wholesome.
And to your point, I think if this was like a whole season long, that would be like the whole B story to I guess like in Disasters where Picard was kind of stuck in the with the kids with Radish Boy. But yeah, there would have been an episode where there was an attack and Harry and her are stuck in the turbo lift and, she's injured and he's just trying to distract her.
Yeah. Like it would have been a bigger, like sweeter moment. And in that moment, they do have a little cute reference to the movie First Contact.
Yes.
Which is also a time travel-y movie, time travel-y plot. And Seven mentions that the Borg were there and that it was a long story. And that's very cute. I really enjoyed that. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot because like nobody on Earth knows that they were there. And that's funny.
Yeah, it's a good wink to that.
It really is. Can we talk about the Krenim ship?
Yes, I noticed that you have pictures.
So I was like, this ship is cool. I liked the design of that like thing that opens up
Looks
with
very
their
squid-like.
time laser. Yeah. But I was like, it looks like something else. And I feel like it kind of looks a little bit like the Romulan ship from Star Trek 2009. Like it has the same vibe, but the Romulan ship from 2009 is, darker and sharper,
more menacing,
and scarier. Yeah. More chaotic looking, but it's sort of a similar shape. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I saw that. I saw both pictures and I was like, oh, interesting. Like I totally understood why you had those images saved.
Yeah, I mean, I think this ship is really cool. I just think it's cool. I think it's interesting. I think it's an interesting design. It doesn't look like sort of anything we've maybe seen before. It seems really different and original, and I'm into it.
It is kind of fun too that in the beginning when they come across this ship, it's not very menacing at all. It's just kind of like pew pew.
Yeah.
And they're hailing Voyager and is not a threat at all. And then once the first sort of time change happens, that ship gets much more powerful and bigger. So I enjoyed that. That was fun to see.
Yeah. And it was cool. Well, like Seven figuring out the temporal shielding because there's that temporal like bomb basically like lodged in the hull of Voyager.
Yeah.
And then she like figures out what frequency it's resonating at or something, Star Trek-y. But then once they're actually protected, how they're like, oh, okay, wait, something just happened. Because they don't remember the first one because they're not protected. But then once they start figuring it out, that is really fun.
Can you imagine what this episode would have been like if they didn't have S.H.I.E.L.D. and Voyager kept changing?
Yeah.
I haven't seen it in a long time, but my brother brought up the episode Shattered, where I guess, is it Kes? It sounds like a Kes thing, but maybe it's somebody else. They're going through the ship, and the ship is shattered into different timelines.
Oh, yeah. I think isn't it 7?
Is it 7? It could be. Yeah, but I'm kind of like getting flashbacks to that episode.
Yeah.
With that idea.
Yeah.
So maybe it's already been done.
I mean, Voyager loved that kind of shit. I mean, I think it would have been cool, but I know they didn't have like a lot of time to do it. But I think it would have been cool if they had gone through more than one like time shift before
version. Maybe for a second they're back on top. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're powerful again, and maybe they're even like almost home. Wouldn't that been
like
a big tease? Like, hey, we found out this equation and da. We're gonna go home, and then boop, another time shift occurs.
We're just making everything better over here, you guys.
or just to, like, different.
Dangle the carrot a little bit for us, like make the stakes a little higher in any way that you can, like they could have raised the stakes even more than they did. The other thing about the Krenim weapon ship, or like the weapon itself, is that it can't change things really. It just eliminates things. So like you can't like change the trajectory of a comet. You can just get rid of the comet.
Yeah, it would have, or just would have been interesting if they changed something and that meant like a new species happened.
Yeah, like
because you could have totally, if this planet wasn't there, this species wasn't there, then this comet ended up doing this and spawning this species. Like, I think you could have had a lot of fun with like that just happening.
Yeah, with like things changing that weren't just like the Krenim ship's bigger, the Krenim ship's smaller, the Krenim ship's bigger, the Krenim ship's smaller. Like if it was like, oh wow, now there's like a whole bunch of other ships here that weren't here before that are like after the Krenim ship now.
Yeah. Now there's
like,
3 new species that didn't exist. And
yeah.
they like eliminated the Kremen, whatever they are. And then
yeah. Like the literally, like with this kind of premise, the possibilities are endless.
Oh
and I feel like they didn't really like tap into like all of what they could have done with it. Like
I would have loved it if after the initial time change, if we just had a random new character on Voyager.
Just appearing out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just like, and everyone's just like, oh, hey, Joe.
Maybe it's supposed to be like an alien they picked up in the Alpha Quadrant.
Right.
Or Delta Quadrant, excuse me.
Yeah.
But I think that could have been fun. And then it's just like, they're gone. And
yeah. And then nobody remembers them. Yeah, totally. That would have been really cool. Well, you know.
One thing I think on the alien ship in part 2, they spend very little time with Tom and kind of like the second in command, who I'm just going to call Ryan Felipe lookalike.
Yeah, we don't know his name.
But like we basically get through secondhand conversations, you know, other dialogue with Tom, that we get this information from him that like, oh yeah, I'm bonding with this crewman who says the crew is frustrated. And, you know, we never see that
some game.
But I almost feel like instead of spending time with Chakotay and the main guy, we should have spent more time with Tom and some of the crew that were disillusioned with this. And then it comes out they've been doing it for 200 years.
200 fucking years.
And that's kind of what I want to talk about. Because in my mind, they were doing it for like 10 or 20. And then I'm thinking, 200 years? And in the very beginning of the episode, they get to like 98% of what they're going for. What is it? Restoration? Right? Is that what they call it? Yeah, 98 restoration. So it's like, dude, our species is on top again. We're powerful. Like, woo! They should be throwing confetti. And, you know, of course, the boss man is like, if it's not 100%, if we don't have that colony and my wife, then nope, we're going back. And if I was his crewman, I would have been like, you dumb fuck. Like, no.
Yeah, fuck
like,
no.
The mutiny would have happened there. I can't imagine them going through 200 years and not just like right then.
Yeah, because they'd never gotten that. Like, he even says that. Ryan Felipe guy.
Right. We're just going to call him
Ryan Felipe guy. Even says, like, we have never been this close.
Yes.
We will never get to 100. And Red Foreman's like, I'm in charge, though.
Because after a while, it should be pretty apparent that he's just trying to get his wife back.
Yeah.
So you think the other crewmen would be like, oh, hell no. We're trying to get the whole civilization and species back in good standing. If that's what your goal is, like, we're getting rid of you.
Yeah, we're potentially talking about like billions of people here. And like, you're just worried about one person.
Also, they must just be tired. It's been 200 years. Like,
yeah.
I wish they didn't make it so long, because it really messes with my belief that they would put up with his shit for so long.
Yeah, like if there had been some sort of, like, other than, I don't know, like psychological manipulation and abuse from this obvious tyrannical, obsessive guy, if there had been some other way that he was keeping them there, or, you know,
or I think I would have loved it if instead of like the big aha moment being Chakotay realizing, yes, our bad guy's a bad guy, which we already knew.
Oh, he's doing genocide.
I would have loved it if Ryan Felipe's character was still in the dark about him always just wanting the colony and his wife. Because you kind of get it from the very beginning, because Kurtwood Smith's character just keeps going like, what about the colony? What about the colony? And you can almost tell that his second in command knows, like, I have to tell him again, the colony's not there, and no, you can't get back to your wife. But I would have loved it if for some reason the big turning point on the alien ship was that the second in command finally realizes he's going for his wife, and that's it.
Yeah.
And that should have been the turning point, where he then goes to Tom and says, fuck this. Like, I'm going to help you, because my boss is like crazy.
Yeah.
And he's not
Yeah.
looking out for any of us. So that would have been like a nice
Yeah.
catalyst, I think.
Like if Kurtwood Smith's character was saying like this colony is like a litmus test for whether this incursion went well.
Ooh,
and that's why we're, and then he finds out that's where his wife was.
Yeah, that would have been really
And he
interesting.
didn't
Like
know.
he says, like
Yeah.
this colony is really important to our because the whole point too is like when they get rid of their enemy with this weapon, it causes the evolution of this alien species to lose the genetic. What is it again? It's like they lose their
lose an
DNA is
antibody.
messed up, and they
Yeah,
don't have like
yeah.
an antibody for a virus that ends up wiping
Yeah.
them out because of what they did in the past to another species. God, I probably got that all wrong.
No, you didn't. You got it right.
So
You got it right.
So it would have been great if he was lying to his crew and saying, well, we need this colony because if we don't have this colony, we're all going to die of the virus again. But then later it turns out, no, he's been lying. It's just all about his wife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would have definitely been more
I would have loved that
interesting.
reveal.
See, all we're doing here, Brandon Braga,
No
is
offense.
raising the stakes. That's all we're doing here. We're just raising the stakes. So you got to kill Chakotay. You got to send Harry and B'Elanna over to that ship. And you got to keep this secret from Ryan Phillippe guy, second in command, so that when he finds out, it's a bigger deal, and then the mutiny is a bigger deal.
Well, it's kind of like a little bit of suspense too. Like I think that's maybe one of the issues is that we pretty much have all the information in the beginning.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
And it's kind of like you kind of, and then you're just kind of waiting to see how they reset the episode.
Yeah,
And so
that's true.
the Voyager stuff is fun to just watch it unfold. Like that's kind of the wonderful candy of the episode, like you said, like kind of a 90s action film. And then it would have been fun if maybe that twist was revealed on the alien ship because we really don't get it. And without that, there's no reason for after 200 years for the second in command to finally come to his senses and say, maybe we should overthrow this guy.
200 years? That's a long time.
Yeah, because he happened to play a game with Tom Paris. He just happens to be like, oh, my brother. Oh, maybe I should help you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like that TNG episode where they're stuck in that time loop and they figure it out after a week, but then they discover that Kelsey Grammer's ship has been in there for like 200 years. And it's like, you guys didn't figure out you've been in a time loop for 200 years. We figured it out in a week. Well, so I feel like in general for me, I have a lot of fun watching this episode because it feels like different than most of the rest of Voyager, because the pacing is different. Like it feels quicker. It feels like there's more action. It feels like there's like the getting through the first episode. I was like, oh, it's over already. I was like, oh, that was very enthralling.
And I will say that I have to come to the conclusion that this is, I understand why this episode is on a lot of top Voyager episode list. Like this episode is better than I remember.
Yeah.
And like I said, I do enjoy the first episode more. I think for me, some of the stuff that happens in the second part on the ship maybe slows it down a little bit or just isn't as interesting when compared to other things they've been doing in the episode.
Yeah.
So that's kind of nice. There's like a lot of high points. And so that just means that the parts where it doesn't quite click for me is a little disappointing. But yeah, like this is better than I remember. So it changed my mind.
Oh, look at that.
Yep.
Won't change my mind about our personal year from hell, but
That's
can
true.
change mind about the episode Year of Hell.
Hopefully it will only be a year of hell.
Oh my God.
Hopefully we can get out of this.
Right?
Please.
Can we get out of this nebula? How do we get out of this nebula? Do I have to crash a ship into another ship and have a time explosion happen?
I have kids, so I nominate you.
Okay, yeah.
Although you do have cats.
I do have cats.
That's true.
What are the cats going to do?
Who else can we send?
Right? Can we send somebody else, please? Well, this was really fun to watch. I feel like I needed something like super distracting. something I could get lost in. Because sometimes, especially with Voyager, I feel like I don't get totally lost in the episode.
Okay.
Like I do with TNG.
Sure.
Or with DS9 even. Like Voyager is kind of one of the shows that I can put on while I'm doing other things.
Yeah, it's easily digestible.
Yeah. But this episode, it is way more fun if you sit down and actually watch it.
I agree.
If it's in the bathroom, in the background,
In the bathroom,
in the background of the bathroom. Even though there's not like character development that really affects and this is very of Voyager though. There's nothing that like changes anybody, and everything does reset afterwards. Like so you don't really learn anything new about any of the characters, which would have been different if they had decided to do this for an entire season instead of just 2 episodes. Like, I'm thinking about how the friendship between Tuvok and Seven would develop over the course of an entire season.
Yeah, and you just wonder if they had taken this premise even of hard times for Voyager to this extent, and maybe instead of it just being like, bloop, time ray resets everything, if it's... And I realized they didn't really do TV like this. I mean, even though Deep Space Nine was more episodic, and Voyager, they were trying to get back to sort of just the episode of the week, the adventure of the week. Yeah. But yeah, if they had taken a few episodes and maybe they do find allies, and those allies help the ship, and they finally coast off or something later. But
I do have in my notes, Janeway loves a coalition.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it would have been interesting to see what would happen if it's 3 episodes where they have to park at an alien planet and get fixed. And within those 3 episodes, you can still have the adventure of the week, but they just happen to happen during this period where they've had this grand fight.
And then think about the very, very end where everything's reset and Voyager is fixed and beautiful again. It's sort of like, the Tin Man getting cleaned up in the land of Oz, and he's like sparkly. He's got like a bow around his neck or something. But imagine after a whole season of walking over pieces of hull and just shit falling off the ceiling and nowhere to sit, teacups everywhere, all over the floor, broken teacups, and then everything's finally back as it was. That relief would be so big.
I'm so sorry because I'm going to go back to Battlestar Galactica, but I've been thinking about this the last few days, where one of the scenes that I remember for some reason is when the captain it's in an episode and something horrible is happening, but he is walking through a hallway.
We're talking about Edward James Olmos.
Yes.
Love him. Also played the dad in Selena.
Just to simplify, I'm just for people who don't know the show, I'm just the captain. But he's walking through a hallway to his office after something horrible happening or bad news. And you just see an area of the hallway that's sort of mid-repair. There's a painter's tarp, and he gets to his office, and there's also a repair. I think that's where the painter's tarp is. And he at one point trips or something, and there's a paint pail, and he throws the brush, and he's whacking at the tarp, and it's so great that he's just frustrated. He's just frustrated whatever happened, but he takes it out on this construction that's happening in his office. But it's such a great sort of juxtaposition of the life of what would really happen if you're kind of lost in space, and then the fact that the ship is just kind of always in repair. There's always something wrong, and that's what they're dealing with. And I don't know why, but I always just loved that moment.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what this episode reminded me of, is just them trying to casually do their thing, even though there's sparks and pieces of metal just right in the middle of the bridge. And and
I feel like they almost did do that the early parts of DS9. Because the station is so fucked up and was left in such a sorry state, so they do kind of do that. But it would have been nice to see some more reality, if that makes sense to even say about a sci-fi show. set in the future, aboard Voyager because of like how they don't have any resources. It's like, it's funny to like think about how like Voyager always seems to be fine, but they have no access to resources and they're completely cut off from the Federation. But DS9 seems to be always broken, but they can actually contact Starfleet. So
yeah, Voyager's always just like, hey, this planet has something we need. We'll make a stop. But for them, it's just like running out and getting a gallon of milk. It's super casual.
Yeah. Janeway's just always like, there's coffee in that nebula. And then there is coffee in there. Anyway, yes. I mean, I would recommend this episode. It is I think it's good. It's good. Like, do it. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not used to giving my recommendation, but I think there is a reason why this is on, the top list for Voyager. Go for it.
Yeah. Maybe it'll help you forget our year of hell that we just went through. At least for like an hour or so.
Yeah, hour and a half.
Hour and a half. But also, now that I'm thinking about it, if I had this temporal technology, I would not try. After watching this shit go down, I would not try to stop COVID. Because who knows what the fuck would happen.
Oh, God. I mean, yeah. I mean, basically, it just always goes wrong.
Yeah.
That's what you
There's
learn.
just you don't win. You can't win.
Don't mess with time. Like, that's really the lesson.
Don't mess with time. You guys, don't mess with time. Just don't do it.
Find us in the collective at intothewormhole.show, on Instagram at intothewormhole.podcast. Into the Wormhole is brought to you by We Own This Town.
Kelsey Grammer.
You silly Kelsey Grammer.